Hi, I'm Kathy Mason. I'm here today with Kimba Arem, and who I consider a dear friend and very, very talented sound healer and musical artist. She's a collaborator with a lot of amazing beings who do beautiful energy work and make a big change in the world. And hopefully you'll get to see more about her, her talents, which are many. She did the sound healing CDs with Dr. Andrew Weil with Sounds True, and she just came off of doing an amazing film about water that hopefully, if you get a chance, you might want to talk about that too. But today, what Kimba's been kind enough to do is to talk about her experience with Kiara Windrider and why she's excited about him coming back to Boulder for a little bit. So Kimba, thank you for talking with me today. I really appreciate it. Yeah, that's the way I feel too. I love you dearly.
I love you.
Yeah. So tell me what you think about Kiara and anything you want to tell us about. I mean, I think if they look you up on the internet, anybody that watches this will go, "Oh my God, Kimba's stuff is remarkable," and you're very experienced in high energy, evolving change energy in the world to bring us to a better evolving space. So your credentials, number one, are fantastic, and then for you to recommend somebody else is a bonus as far as I can see. So I just want to turn it over to you and stop yakking and let you say whatever.
About Kiara?
About Kiara. Yeah, well, about you too. If you want to start and explain a little bit about what you do, that would be really valuable for everybody.
Oh, okay. Well, for the last 23 years, I have been on the path of, it's hard to put a name to it, but I call it roughly music therapy. It's vibrational medicine. My main focus is on sound, audible sound, and also subtle sounds in overtones using various instruments that I've studied over the years and become, I guess you could say, a musician of. My training is classical music, but some of these instruments are so otherworldly. It's hard to say, is that music? It's beyond what we would call music. It's a form of sound that I feel is very therapeutic to parts of us that don't normally get addressed, including our subtle bodies, our emotional body, our mental body. My main instrument is the quartz crystal didgeridoo that I designed, and I started out with the traditional wooden ones that I was originally introduced to in '92 after a near-death experience, and the didgeridoo came into my life within a few months of that and got me on the track of sound therapy over the years, just following that sound. And the sound of that instrument is the oldest instrument in the world, and it's considered by the Aboriginals to be the sound of creation. And it's what connects us to the ancestral realm, to the dream time, to other worlds beyond ours. It's kind of like an umbilical cord that connects us to the larger beyond. And I could weave this into what's interesting about my connection with Kiara. I met him 2 years ago through you.
Wow.
And he, through a series of very interesting synchronicities, but starting with you saying, "Hey, I think you guys should meet." And I had never heard of him. Later I found out about his books and read them, and they're amazing, but I never heard of him. It was this intuitive hit that I just had to meet him. And after we met, I won't go into the synchronicities, but there were unbelievable synchronistic alignments between us that I've never met anybody since who knew about some of the things that I was studying and getting into that he had experience. Very obscure texts and things having to do with Egyptian mythology and rebirth and the human destiny of the soul. And basically, I'm summarizing, but so we ended up doing a trade because he really liked the didgeridoo, and I use that in my sound therapy work as one of my instruments. And we ended up, the day we did this trade for the work he does, the Ilahinor light work, and now other things as well, but I did a sound therapy session, and then after that, he did his light work on me. And so this experience, this was on the 4th of July, 2 years ago, and I knew nothing about the 4th of July, what it really means at the time. I have since learned that was the Egyptian New Year, and it's the day that we align with the star Sirius. And because all of the, our whole United States is very much based on Egyptian mythology and, esoteric teachings that are encoded even into our holidays and all these things. But so that's a very powerful day, our alignment with this star, probably our sister star. There's this whole new emerging awareness that our sun has a sister sun, and they rotate around each other, which is what creates the yugas, or these different ages. It has to do with our rotation around Sirius, the brightest star in the sky. So on that day, I did the sound session, and then he did his work on me. It took about 20 minutes, and he's not touching the body. He's working in the field around the body. And after he finished, I, was sitting there, and I started to hear this sound. And I said that to Kiara. I said, I'm hearing a sound. And he said something like, oh, this is the sound of the silence, or something. He didn't say much about it. And I'm like, well, that's interesting. And I hear sounds above and below the hearing range, and I've been tested in this, and things that are conducted through your bones that you may not normally perceive below the hearing range and above supersonic sounds. And those started about 5 years ago, the supersonic and the subsonic sounds. But usually when I hear them, they kind of come and go. They're not like, they'll last 30 seconds. There'll be different tones, but all, supersonic. And this was different. It was a very, very high tone, but it was constant. It wasn't like 30 seconds or in one ear or the other. It was just from everywhere. And so I was like, this is interesting. So Kiara left, and the sound continued. And I went home that night, and I was like, the sound is just coming from everywhere. It's not deafening, but it definitely got my attention. And so the sound has not stopped. And that was 2 years ago. So I hear it all the time. The first month is not tinnitus. I am very clear that this is not a disorder. But the first month was a little bit uncomfortable because I was having different things going on in my chakras. One day I had my solar plexus was contracting, and it was just chakra stuff, and different weird things with my vision and in my body. But they were transitory, though. They lasted maybe a day, and all the time the sound is going. Wow. And I one day I started to get a little frightened because it was so loud. The full moons are louder actually when I hear it. Oh. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to research it. So I got on the internet, and that led me down this rabbit hole. You get on the internet, you start to research something about the sound of silence, basically. And Kundalini Yoga talks about this. Every culture in the world, if you look deep enough, has something to say about this thing, this sound that is hard to talk about because it's not well defined. But I would define it, after a couple of years of studying it and being immersed in it, as the sound of space, or the sound of the universe. They call the Big Bang, leaves this residual radiation that we say is the universe is vibrating and everything is sound. So it's not like coming from one source, and it's not coming from my spinal column. It's not an internal sound. I'm quite convinced of that. This is the sound of creation. And in a way, it's very similar to the didgeridoo. It's a constant tone. It connects us, to me, what it's done over the last few years is it connects me to, it's changed my life in ways that would be hard to describe in a short video. But what it's doing to me, being immersed in this field of actually being able to hear space, the geometry of space. Space has a geometry, like Nassim's work shows, and geometry is math, and math is music. Music is sound. So there's the harmony of the spheres, but there's also the sound. Nada Brahma means the world is sound, and it's the sum total of creation. So that's his big impact.
Wow.
How it's changed my life, and it continues to this day. And just one last piece on that, in this book that I told you was a very obscure book that we had in common, that he had already gone through this practice. This book is out of print. It was called The Lion Path. And I was seeking someone who had ever heard of this or knew about this. And the man who wrote it has died for a number of years now. And in this teaching, they were discussing how the brain has a mechanism that if you synchronize the different, there's like the medulla and the pineal gland and the pituitary gland, and they can form like a coherent, some kind of resonance, like a coherent field. And if that gets activated, and there's certain practices that the Egyptians would do to activate this, including plants, but mainly practices that were very esoteric, it would trigger this process that's similar to a butterfly emerging from the caterpillar. The caterpillar at some point releases a chemical that stimulates the imaginal cells to form the chrysalis and to be reborn as a butterfly. And the human brain, if this thing happens, if this activation occurs, we produce a chemical that is almost identical to this imaginal cell chemical that caterpillars release. If you just look at the biology, and it talks about this in the book, but it's not a natural process like it is in a caterpillar. We have to trigger that. And I just wonder if that's kind of what's going on, is that work that he did, the Allahinor work, I was ready for it or whatever. And I definitely felt like I was calling for some kind of help at that time to just help me go to the next level. And I didn't really know what I was getting in for, because it's been kind of intense, but in only a positive way. And like I said, the first month was like, whoa, like, is this going to just be like this now? And now I'm really grateful for it. And so he's a very humble man, and unassuming, and I would not have expected anything like this. It's not something you can expect. And I don't think everyone will have this exact same experience, but I know that what he's doing is doing something. And I'm a very science, my background is very science. So I like to not just believe, my right brain is also developed, but I like the experience as well as the knowledge and all the foundational things that, to me, say there's something going on here. It's not just a placebo. It's not just a belief system. And so I'm a fan of Kiara, and I feel that he has done a lot of work on himself over maybe many lifetimes to be of assistance to others and to help us during this crucial time that we're in on the planet. So I highly recommend his work.
Oh, thank you.
Personal experience.
Thank you so much. Well, the Allahinor seems like it's simple and it was easy to learn. Ted and I took a class and learned it in one day, but it's amazing how strong it is and how much it grounds you. I mean, it pulls in the energy from above, but it brings you, it is grounded in the earth, which for me personally, that's part of my love of it. And also that it originated through his communication with the whales and the dolphins, that they activated, there's a back area of your brain that they're more evolved than we are, and they communicated that to him. He's just a magical being that brings all these simple to use, easy to learn tools that can really change your life, right? I mean, it's really amazing that we're so lucky that we live in a time that all of this can be possible.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, we're the ones we've been waiting for. So might as well share all our talents and uplift each other so we can transform humanity to the butterfly, it was my understanding of the deeper layer of the Egyptian teaching, and the winged Osiris was a symbol of us transcending cyclical existence in the third dimension to graduate as a species or an individual at a time. But also, I think we live in a time when the species has an opportunity to move on. We could say the fourth density, the fifth dimension beyond, but it's a time of transformation, and it's as intense and different as the butterfly is from the chrysalis.
Yeah. Yes, it's an time for self-empowerment and a time of choosing, and that's what I hope as many people as possible get to experience Kiara's work. And you're going to be doing some music for us too, I hope, for part of the event. So they'll get to be enchanted with your beautiful gifts. I mean, really, Kimba, you're amazing, and I just love your work as much as anybody could. I'm a big fan of yours. So thank you for helping us with Kiara, and thank you for all the work you do in the world. And I think that's all we need to do right now. Is there anything else you'd like to say?
Just back at you. I'm a big fan of yours and you and your work and how much you support everyone and uplift others through just your presence. And happy birthday tomorrow.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, don't tell everybody.
Celebrating your life and
yeah. Well, we're not trying to get older. We're trying to get wiser, maybe, but or actually, I want to get less mature.
More not childish, childlike.
Well, I'm already there, I think, but
definitely.
Anyway, well, thank you, dear, and I look forward to seeing you soon.
We'll see you again soon.
Okay, thank you.